Greetings, LoreSeekers, and welcome to another episode of The Lost Archives, a Star Wars Legends lore series. So this week, I want to talk about the Falanassi, a Force-sensitive group that was both a Force order and a religion. Now, they didn't follow what you would call the Force. They were known as the Adepts of the White Current, believing the Force to just be a tributary to the river that is the White Current. Similar to the Witches of Diaphana in that they were an all-female group, and because of this they rarely taught men how to use the Force. Their main powers being that of illusion, and as a technique known to the Jedi as Force immersion. This essentially meant that you could use this technique to hide yourself in the background energy field that is the Force, and thus people wouldn't be able to sense you. I will go into a bit more about both techniques later on in the video. So, as previously stated, their main power is for that of illusions. This did give them one significant weakness in that they had no power over the physical world. That means, just like Corran Hall, they had no proficiency with such moves as Force telekinesis. This meant that they weren't that good at using the Force in combative ways, preferring instead to use their illusions to hide themselves and everything they could do. They also taught that authority was an illusion and that everyone should serve only their own desires. This did lead to some things that would get them into a lot of trouble down the line, firstly with the Empire and then with Luke, and in fact the trick that one of the Falanassi tried to pull on him meant that he never wanted to have anything to do with them again, even though they did teach him some pretty damn cool illusion based techniques which he'd use to his full advantage later on in his career as Jedi Grandmaster. But alas, how did the Falanassi fall foul of Palpatine? Well, essentially, Palpatine invoked his inner self and was very much set on them bending the knee or being fried. They politely declined, and so Palpatine did what he did best and sent an entire battalion of stormtroopers to kick down their door. All the while, one of them betraying them to Palpatine and pointing the stormtroopers straight through their illusions, and so they had to pack up and run. Eventually coming to find shelter with an all-male sect of Hikig monks, who offered them shelter in exchange from using their Force illusion abilities to hide their temple from the government that was trying to wipe them out. Palpatine was not the only person who had several disagreements with several pseudo-religious organisations. Agreeing to this deal/compromise, the Falanassi essentially shrouded the Hikig monastery, the Temple of Infinite Spirit, with an illusion convincing all that came that it was just a smoking ruin that seemed too dangerous to explore. This would change about 17 years later when Jedi Master Luke Skywalker and Ekana, the daughter of the sister that had betrayed the Falanassi, arrived on the planet and uncovered their illusion. They welcomed Anakin back, but then they confirmed to Luke that his mother wasn't actually a member of their order. This is the schism that I spoke of earlier in the video. The main reason for this is because Ekana had said to Luke that his mother was a member of the Falanassi, and at the time they were having a bit of a relationship. This schism she would come to regret for the rest of her life. But moving on, so the White Current, essentially it is an interpretation of the Force that does not pull on any emotion, so anger, protection, healing, other reasons, or even just, stuff like aggression, like the path towards the dark side, doesn't really interact with the aspects of this for when tapping the current. Instead, what you're actually doing is immersing yourself in ripples within the Force, rather than the Force as a whole. Now, it is essentially created within the Force by only focusing on spirit, body, and mind. This was what creates... how would I explain it? Sort of like an eddy within the Force, and that they found that when immersing themselves in this, they could use it to perfect the mind, body, and soul into one single individual. As stated before, this didn't give them any power over the physical world, but it meant they were perfect at creating illusions and mind-altering effects. Anything from just simply changing something to appear real in front of you, it would seem very, very real. In fact, one of the greatest uses of this is repeatedly used throughout the entire Legends canon, not by the Falanassi themselves, but by people who have learned their techniques, is the creation of a ship or a fleet just appearing in orbit around somewhere. And now this is good enough to basically confuse sensors, targeting information, and even your senses themselves. This fleet appears very, very real. It's been used on a grand scale to end a war, because there was the Black Fleet crisis that was currently going on when Luke first met the Falanassi, and on a much smaller scale by Luke himself to humiliate Darth Caedus in front of his entire fleet. So for Darth Caedus, he was dodging around flying out this enemy fleet that he seemed to have, but to all his onlookers, they were just looking at him like, what the hell's he doing? Completely, humiliating in front of his forces. Now, one other thing that this ability allows you to do as well is the added bonus of being able to sense people in the ripples they make in the Force. This meant that whether you're using the Force or technology to try and hide yourself, it became that much harder. Now, what I mean by this is if you're using, say, abilities in the Force to try and make your Force presence as small as possible, even with that in place, you could still sense somebody using the white current. Hell, even cloaking devices were rendered practically useless. Which brings me on to their own variant of making themselves smaller in the Force, which would be the Force immersion. Now this comes to various things again, so your physical senses, electronics, even automated starship sensors. With this ability, if you meditate on it long and hard enough, and basically experienced practitioners, you could remove objects, even people, from seemingly out of existence. Really, you're just under a very impressive cloaking Force technique that people can't detect. It's even been used to make starships go completely invisible, as Anakin did use it to cloak the ship her and Luke were on during the Black Fleet crisis so they could slip past. Now, a fully trained Falanassi could actually instill these effects without having to constantly meditate. However, it does have a weakness, though not for followers of the white current. Followers of the white current, because they are all using the white current, don't really seem to suffer from this drawback. But those who draw from, say, other aspects of the Force, specifically Jedi Masters, over deployment of Jedi Masters to one location will actually weaken and compromise the permanent illusion. An example of this would be the permanent illusion that they had placed over the Jedi Praximon Yavin 4. This caused it to weaken and then be detected during one of the invasions of Yavin 4. But one of the greatest uses of the white current and Force immersion would come in the Legacy of the Force series where Luke and once again Darth Caedus were having a bit of a problem. Luke was currently fighting his forces, engaged with his Jedi strike wing, and seemingly it seemed that one of the Jedi had actually killed Luke by accident using a bit of friendly fire. And they all felt him just wink out of the Force. Caedus, being Caedus, was all arrogant about it while he was torturing Luke's son. So, your dad's dead. Ben reached out into the Force just to confirm this, and he sat there and was like, I can feel everyone else's anguish. I can feel Caedus's glee. My auntie and my niece are upset because they think he's dead, but I can quite clearly see him. Huh, that's a neat trick. To which Caedus, being Caedus, is like, oh, I assure you, this is no trick. Luke Skywalker is dead. Suddenly, his ship's long-range turbo bolt lasers all blow up at once, and he's got an angry Luke standing behind him with his green lightsaber lit, with a look that says, come at me, mate. Anyway, guys, this has been my video on the Falanassi. As always, my sources will be down in the description below. If you like this video, perhaps consider giving me a like, maybe a comment down below, get a discussion going on what we've discussed here today. If you didn't like it, obviously dislike, bit of constructive criticism, help me improve stuff as we're going along. And if you haven't done so already, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And just one quick piece of news before I go. This will be the last lore video for several weeks, as I am in fact going on vacation. Yes, even us lizards do take holidays once in a while. Don't worry, I'll be putting up the last 2 episodes, I think it is, of the Dark Forces Let's Play before I go. And I'll be taking my laptop with me, so I'll still be doing some lore video recordings. It's just that the place I'm going to doesn't exactly have a connection to the wireless network of this dimension. Anyway, I should hopefully see you in a few weeks. Take care, LoreSeekers, and have a good day.